Good morning, everyone. It's Joker, and today we are back with part 2 of the Heroes Jubilee boss battle video. Just got done recording boss battle 1, and again, if you saw that video, I have a very big caveat for this boss battle video is that, like, these are not my highest scores that I have the potential of getting. It's just what God has given me as far as RNG is concerned, because I've been having just really bad luck in this Jubilee. So I wanted to just get these videos out with some semblance of a team that could get you to score high, which, you know, rank 5 is definitely what I would consider high. It's just nowhere near what I have the potential of doing and showing you, but the game is refusing to work with me, so I don't have a team to show you, like a 300 or 400k turn or a score. So it's unfortunate, but again, I didn't want to not put these videos up at all and just sit here for the next 5 days and attempt to get that one perfect run, and then you guys have like 6 hours left before Jubilee is gone. It's not what I wanted to do. So this is a team that can get you a decent score, a very competitive score, not the highest score though, and I will work on it as the week goes on, and if we get, you know, much better scores, then I will definitely post those runs individually. But with that said, the same disclaimers as always are the same. You know, your scores are going to vary based on the amount of units that you have as options, as substitutions, if you don't have the exact team that I'm using. These are your protection trait units and the skill point units. I don't think I use skill point units here at all, though, so just protection, really. And then don't forget to optimize your space building in town, because we are nuking with space units here. As far as what Diablo does, it's not much, actually. So he nerfs greens, he has crit resistance, and he has guard and physical resistance. So, you know, space magic, obviously the better thing to use. If you bring a crit team, bring Fire Millum to seal this resistance right here. Other than that, like, he doesn't seal Vengeance at all. So you could bring the Vengeance team in if you really, really wanted to. I do not use the Vengeance team in this video, however, just because it's not going to get you what you want. So let's go ahead and jump in. Alright, so here is my initial run with my current high score, right? The one that the only score that I currently have right now. We've got the full meta, quote-unquote, Lumi, Blanc, Jean, Violet. We've brought Albus again, and this time Octagram Lumi for the permanent alt buff. So this team should work. Again, you're looking for triple EX alts from the girls, right? But, you know, sometimes it just doesn't work out like that. And you're going to have two EX alts and nothing, or you're going to have, you know, an EX alt and 2 normal alts. It just kind of depends. The charm I'm running is once again the 40% extra alt gauge on blues in an attempt to get extra alt gauge for everybody. But also, since we have Lumi here, we're actually going to get 2 stacks of protection gauge on turn 2. So Albus is here for the orb change. Lumi's giving us the protection gauge for turns 1, 2, and 3. So between that and then Blanc, we're going to have a double stack of Lumi on turn 2, which is, you know, it's really helpful. The difference between having 1 stack and 2 stacks when you're going into turn 2 as far as points is concerned is, like, it's a lot. So here we get very lucky again with the turn 2 protection, or turn 2 orbs, so we can use Violet's orb change while stacking up on the ladies. And, you know, at this time it's like, all right, are we gonna get a spread of, you know, 4 Jeans and 2 Violets, or 4 Blancs and, you know, 1 and 1? And anything is possible. But now we got to start using the extra alt damage. As the faster we get that done, the easier it is to not worry about it towards the end of the fight, where you're really hurting for points because your orb changes cost a lot, your alt swap with Blanc costs a lot, you still have to use a lot of points. This is an unfortunate hand right here, because we cannot deal with 4 orange orbs, right? We don't have, like, Warrior's Mind Violet to come and swap some of those out, and this is just a terrible hand. So we do run it because, you know, we would get a decent amount of alt gauge here off 4 oranges. So I think what I do is I use Lumi's second stage of the buff and then swap her out for Blanc, and then just send the 4 oranges and pray that next turn looks a little better. I'm just sitting here thinking right now. So let's zoom ahead. So yeah, there's the extra 20%. So now we're up to 40% extra alt. And then we bring Blanc in and then use a stack, send the oranges, and we'll move on with our day and pray that the next turn is not as terrible. So he does have guard, so he is cutting our damage down by a little bit. Not really that big of a deal. And then we get, you know, I guess I would say fairly lucky with the orbs, quote unquote. So still not really getting that many Blanc orbs, which is just the bane of my existence at this point. So we'll do that orb change. We're going to swap Violet out, and then we're going to bring in Albus, because we already have that other blue orb coming in, so I don't really feel the need to use the alt swap right now. Just the green orb change, and then we'll call it good. We don't have enough to use the next stage of Valentine's alt buff, but we'll get there. 227 points now is looking pretty good, as long as this turn doesn't do anything funky to us, and it kind of does. It kind of does. However, to save us from using the green orb change from Albus, we're actually going to bring in Violet, or we're going to bring in Lumi first for Albus, because once we swap Lumi out for Violet, we're going to take that one green, and then we can just use the Violet orb change and call it good. So there's now the third stack of Lumi, and now we'll bring them in, we'll get the 2 stacks, we'll use the alt swap, and then Violet's orb change, and that gets us a full hand of blues. So if your Lumi is not skill fused in level 100, then that is the last buff you can use for that Dark Lumi, so you'd be at the 60% extra alt damage permanently. But mine is skill fused, so we need one more usage out of her before we're really ready to go. But that gets the Blanc alt at the very minimum, so at least we have an alt for her, right? And then we have, I believe, the EX alt for Jean. No, very close. Violet is getting close. We're halfway through the fight now, a little further than halfway. So another stack, and then we need to really make conscious decisions here of what we want to do. So swap the alts. And then, at this rate, we're not going to get a Blanc EX alt, so we're just going to sacrifice her and bring Albus into the orb change, and then we can use the final stack of Lumi on this turn, so we don't have to worry about that anymore for the next couple of turns. So we're, a little bit more freed up on points now, and we're just going to have to live with the fact that we just don't have an EX alt for Blanc, which, is unfortunate, but not the end of the world, as long as we can get our 2 primary space nukers, their EX alts. That's going to be where most of our damage comes from. And, there we go. So we're looking pretty good. So we can bring Blanc in now for Lumi, and then get that last stack. So I don't want to bring Albus in yet, because Albus is going to pierce buff 2 units, right? Because she can't buff all 3. So we're going to make sure that we buff the right ones. So we'll use the final stack right here, or at least this, not final, but this stack. We'll use the alt swap. We don't use the alt swap. Right. And then I sit here and contemplate my life choices because I was an idiot right there. So very unfortunate, very huge misplay right there, because we could have alt swapped and then used the Violet orb change and gotten a full hand of blues, and that would have given us quite a bit of extra points and maybe another stack. But now I'm just hating myself because I'm an idiot, and then I hate myself for a little while. But here, we'll just go ahead and do that, and we'll just send the 4 blues. I mean, it does get us another stack, but if we had sent 6, we could have gotten another stack of Lumi, which would have been, better, because it's more damage, but didn't quite work out that way. So, thankfully, we still do have barely enough points to use everything, right? So 80, 55, 80, 80, and 80 comes out to like 375 points. So we are just 3 points over. So we're going to pierce buff the 2 space units, and then we don't need Otgrim Lumi for anything, so we'll just bring Blanc in. Thankfully we have, a space for her. We'll get the final stack of Lumi going, and then we'll use everything else. So, yeah, 3 points extra. Got very, very lucky right there. So this is the nuke turn. Let's, how much do we do here? So 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5. So Blanc without the Pierce buff, 1.1 million, no EX alt. Violet does 5.1, good. Jean does 5.9, almost 6 million right there. And then the 2 final orbs push us over 13. Yeah, 13.3 million damage right there, which is very good, but it could have been better, right? We could have had that extra stack. We could have had an EX ult for Blanc. Things could have gone more our way, but they didn't. So this is a good showing, not the best showing, though. But, you know, that's the first team, my highest score as of right now. Let's move on to the sad alternate teams now. Alright, so the second team is going to be the half meta like we did for the first video. However, we've made one crucial substitution. Instead of bringing Summer Shizu for the weakness buff and the alt swap, we brought Earth Rimuru, Warrior's Mind Rimuru, for his alt swap, and also the ability to rush space alts. Space and Earth, technically, but mainly space. So we've got Lumi, Guy, Visions of Coleus Rimuru, who, you know, has his own orb change and the rainbows. Rimuru's going to force the alts for Milim and Violet, and what we're attempting to do here is we've sacrificed some level of damage support by not having the weakness buff, but we're going to try and offset that by using like 2 almost fully buffed EX alts in the same run alongside Milim's, you know, not EX alt. So ideally, we'd be able to nuke on like turn 4 with an EX alt and use some buffs, and then build back up and then on turn 8 we'll be able to full nuke again, because we'll be able to ensure that both Milim and Violet will have their full ult gauge because of Rimuru. So it works out pretty well. There's a little bit of funkiness to this team, don't get me wrong. Guy is going to cover our turn 1 orb change though, because it's just the 2 greens. So I mean, that's good. Between him and Violet, again, we have the orb changing pretty much handled. It's just that it really banks on what turn 2 is going to look like. So turn 1, do that. We're going to leave the Vision of Coleus Rimuru up because he is going to get that extra damage buff. So that's just extra damage along the way. Guy and Rimuru, Earth Rimuru, are not going to do much for us in terms of normal orb damage. But at least we get the super weak point here. And then we get a good Violet orb change here too. So that works out fairly well. So we'll go ahead and do that. And then we'll get this 1 stack going. We don't have, you know, Ochgram Lumi to give us the extra double stack here. Unfortunate, but this isn't the full meta team, right? So you can only do so much. Alright, so here, again, we get a pretty lucky Violet orb change again. So the gods are treating me well for this run. It's quite refreshing, actually, to know that there are times where I'm not completely friggin' shafted. Sometimes there are, though. Sometimes there definitely are. But I also don't want to send all these Rimuru orbs, because he's going to get his ult, and we only have the ability to swap 1, and we're going to rush the ults here for Lumi and, not Lumi, but Violet and Milim. Going to go ahead and send these, so then next turn we could use Rimuru again, and that'll get us the EX ult for Violet, and then we'll look pretty good. Milim doesn't need it again, so she's going to come out of here after we use the stat, or the stack on her. So we'll orb change with Guy. We'll use Drago now? No? Oh, okay, I think we're just going to nuke here. Are we? I thought we gave her the EX ult, but I might be wrong. Alright, there's the orb change. Yeah, I think we wait 1 more turn. Or not. What am I doing? Come on, get your shit together. Man. It's incredible that this happened like an hour ago, and I have no recollection of it. Is that just because I'm getting old? Is that because I've just been so pissed off today at Jubilee? I don't actually know. Okay, so, there we go. We swap them out. We use the extra alt gauge right here, plus the alt swap ability, and now with this hand we'll be able to get the Violet EX alt. And then next turn, turn 4, we'll be able to maybe half nuke with this team, and it'll look relatively fine. So, cheeky counter right there, cool. Now Milim comes in for Rimuru, and then we're going to send all 3 of these alts after we get the stack on. Guy, you know, does benefit from that, so we'll do the orb change, and then the alt buff and magic buff. So the magic buff doesn't help Guy, but the space buff wouldn't have helped him either, so it is what it is. 45k, 327k, 761k. So, I mean, it's pretty good damage right there. And we're, you know, that wasn't a full buff because we were missing the space buff. interesting thing to note here is Drago is not sealed in this stage, unlike Boss Battle 1. So we are able to use that and enhance the amount of damage that we're going to do with Milim by a little bit. So we'll do that, and then we can bring Rimuru in for Guy. So we can use the alt swap ability here on himself, which will work out fairly well. And then we can get him out of here for Visions of Coleus Rimuru, and then we can use his Unity Orbs. So it's 5 Unities and just an orange, but this is going to get us quite a bit of alt gauge here and max points. So we get, a double alt for Milim, cool. And then we're already halfway up to getting the EX alt for Violet. And now that, again, we have Earth Rimuru in the back. So that's why we brought both Rimurus, for that exact turn. It would have been better if, all 6 of them are Unities, but it is what it is. So we'll make do with it. But now we have 3 alts. We still need more for Violet, though. That's the thing. So we're going to go ahead and use the alt rush ability here. That is the full EX alt for Violet now, so we're looking good. We can go ahead and send a Milim alt, because we don't need it. Do we actually do it? Am I smart enough to do that? No. I could have sent another Milim alt, because she doesn't need 2 bars. But that was a misplay right there. Slight mistake on my part, but it is now the final nuke turn, and we made sure to have everybody have an alt so we could swap the alts in and out freely. So there's the alt buff, and then we'll get him out of here for Coleus Rimuru, because he will do decent damage. He'll get the magic buff, so he still won't get the space buff though. But here, magic, space, the Drago effect, and we still have 82 points, but we don't have any other buff to use. So here we go. This works out pretty well. It could have been a tiny bit higher because we could have sent another Milim alt last turn, but it is what it is. 156 is a lot more than what Guy did. 626k and 1.3 million damage. And then these 2 follow-up orbs pushes us to 3.9 million. So almost 4 right there. It's not terrible. It's not great, but it's not terrible. So that gets us 98,000 final score. Definitely not the 250 something that I have, but he also didn't do 12 million, 13 million damage with this team. But, this does impose that you summoned on, the Part 2 banner. You got Lumi and Rimuru and Violet, and then you may have been lucky and pulled Guy and Warrior's Mind Rimuru from the 2nd anniversary big ticket banner. But that is the second team. Let's move on to the last team, which is just taking whatever you got and making a blue team out of it and attempting to do something. Alright, the final team is, I have no EX units whatsoever to nuke with, and we're going to use free-to-play unit, Cleash. She came with the meta, she's technically a space single target, so cool. Old Rimuru. Now, granted, this Rimuru is skill-fused, so if you don't have him skill-fused, you'll do less damage, but, he still has the 40% attack buff regardless. Fire Milim to seal the crit and also give us crit, which is just extra damage. Plus, she's got a single orb, green orb change, which will help out. Shuna, even though she's type disadvantaged, she does have the orange orb changing covered, and she's got the 70% alt buff. So still a fantastic unit for most players. And then we've got Cleash, the magic resistance down, the green orb changing is covered, and then Space Milim will be our primary nuker here. And then our protector is Space Veldora, the original half anniversary protector, the original stacking protector, and he does it, but just not as well. But, you've got the attack buff, the crit buff, the alt buff, the magic resistance down, the space buff, and Drago. So it's not like this team is not full of support, it's just power crept support is how we'll phrase that, because these units are quite old, except for Cleash, who is brand spanking new, but she's a free-to-play unit, so you can't expect her to change the world, right? But she does, have turn 1 orb change covered. Unfortunately, it is that imperfect orb change effect, but here, we're not running turn 2 protectors to begin with, or turn 2 protection traits to begin with, so we weren't going to get it anyways, so it's not that big of a deal. And here is the exact moment when bringing Fire Milim was the correct choice, because we have enough points to use the single orb change for her and Water Shuna's orb change, and then we'll be looking pretty good. Space Veldora, in case you don't know, and you've never used him because he's so old, he gives you, 40 point skill cap every time you use him, like normal. He gives you 50% extra skill points on every orb, up to 250. So that's like the big whole difference, is that instead of buffing blues specifically by 100 up to 500, he's buffing every single type of orb, but at half the rate. So greens and oranges will also give you extra skill points. It's just that on a stacking blue team, they're not giving you nearly as many points as a New Age Protector would be doing. And then, on top of that, he's also stacking space attack, which means that Rimuru, Cleash, and Milim will can hit harder and harder every single time we use the stack. But here, on this turn, we've got 5 Milims, and we can't do anything about 3 oranges, so we're just going to run it, and we'll get her ult, and we'll send it early. None of these units are EXs, so we don't need to feed them a butt ton of orbs, so we can just kind of send this ult willy-nilly, because I wouldn't say guaranteed, but it's a very high chance that we're going to get it back, because we're still using the 40% ult gauge on blue charm as well. So, and we've got 4 more turns to get another ult for Milim. I don't think it's going to be that hard. So, now if you were to send like another one right here, then maybe you'd be a little bit hard pressed. So we're gonna, once we get her ult, we're gonna hold on to it now. So, orb change, we'll swap Rimuru out. He's an AoE unit, so I'm like, yes, he is space, but he's physical, and this Diablo has resistance against physical, so his ult and his attacks are just not going to do as much damage as the other units are going to do. So he's not super high priority, and, to ensure that, he doesn't get an ult on the nuke turn, because the game hates me. Spoiler alert. So there's another stack. We get an interesting orb change right here, so we'll bring Rimuru back in. Milim doesn't need anything now. She's good, and we're going to have plenty of points to use her buffs, so we don't even use the Drago right here. 3 more turns to go, and then we'll go ahead and take Cleash out as well, since we can use Milim's orb change and Shuna, and we'll still be good. We'll also use some defense, because we are going to leave a water unit up front. And while this Diablo doesn't do a butt ton of damage, if he hits Shuna, she will take more than the others, and that'll hurt your score a little bit. So this is just to ensure we take just less damage. So thankfully she didn't get hit at all. But they're very lucky right here. The 1 green orb. We have a double stack of Veldora, so we do want to make sure that the girls do get that. So we're going to bring Milim in, and then Fire Milim doesn't have any orb whatsoever, so we can freely bring Cleash in and not interrupt this 5 send of blue, which does work out fairly well. It's just that next turn is the unfortunate part. So 2 more stacks on the main nukers right here. We'll send the 5 blues. That'll give us enough points to use all the buffs, which 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 55 point skills plus the 15 from Space Milim. It's a pretty hefty amount, but we do have enough to do so. And then we got, the unluck right here, where we don't have a Shuna orb. So we can't bring in goddamn Rimuru, which is unfortunate, but, again, he wasn't going to do the most damage being physical and AoE, so it's not a huge loss, but it is still the epitome of my luck so far in this run. Okay, we actually don't have enough points to use Drago. That's unfortunate. So, oh well. We could have done a little bit more. So Cleash does 281. All right, cool. Milim does 358. Could have been higher if we had enough points to use the Drago buff, and the score could have broken 1,000,000 probably if we had like the Rimuru ult. So terrible luck right there. But this is a very, very old team with no EX units, so you can't expect too much out of it. But they are either free or very old and easily acquired from ticket summons and other things like that if you get lucky. So that is the 3 teams for Boss Battle 2. Again, I apologize for not having like the big sweaty team showcased, but when I get it, and then I'll post it. But you'll have to make do with this for now, and hopefully this video helps your scores out by a little bit. But that's it for me, guys. Take it easy, and I'll see you all later.